So here we are again, and look, you're looking very smart today, Mr. Michael. And I think we're both
Thank
wearing
you.
different clothes
As
today,
always,
which is a good thing. Hey,
you have to change every now and again.
you do have to change every now and again. That is true. Good policy to do that. So we're following up on some material that we got from Seth Godin, and we're looking at the whole Pathfinder model, or as he calls it, the linchpin model. And yesterday we talked about the role of the zealot and the whiner, as it were, and the role that attachment plays. And so today we're going to move to looking at the bureaucrat and the pathfinder, I think. So yeah, let me throw the ball to you, Mike, and take us on. The bureaucrat and the pathfinder.
Cool, great. So maybe just a bit of a recap. So these are different roles that we can play in a given situation. And if you think about today, within a lockdown COVID-19 space, all of us are playing a certain role. I think the truth is that we play all of these roles at different times, but the real question is which role is the default role? Which role is the role that you wake up into most of the time? So the first one we spoke about was the zealot. The zealot is attached to his or her idea. The zealot tends to want to blame somebody else. They've got to pay for it. And the zealot has got passion, but because of that attachment, they can be quite dangerous people because they don't see anything else. The whiner, similar to the zealot, is attached, but their attachment tends to be a little bit different. They're attached to the idea that the world is against them. And poor me, like Dave said yesterday, they're the type of person, when the plane is delayed, they look at everybody, or they whisper to the person next to them and say, you know why it's delayed? It's because I'm on the plane. This always happens to me.
Yes.
And I'm sure we've all used those words from time to time. This always happens to me. The difference between the whiner and the zealot is the whiner is passive. So they go around complaining, but not doing anything about it. Now, the third role is the role that I think I am probably the most scared of. And it's the person who is passive, but who does have insight. They have perspective. So this is somebody who knows that tough things happen, who knows that these things that are happening to us is not something personal, but they have very, very little drive. So they're always waiting for somebody else to lead them.
Mm.
And Godin refers to this person as a bureaucrat. And it's amazing how often we're waiting for somebody else to give us permission to do something.
Yes.
And to not lead.
Yeah.
And I think that's why this one scares me, because I know that myself personally, I might go to the zealot space every now and again. I might go to the whining space every now and again. But I do know that I can go to the bureaucrat state, which says, I know a lot, but I'm just going to sit here and wait for somebody to tell me what I can and should do. Yeah.
I
So
think
that's bureaucrat.
it is. And I think, in this time, actually, that we're in the lockdown thing, that's probably the easier one to settle to, is well, I'll just wait till the government tells me I can go back to work, or wait till the government tells me I can do something. Until then, I'm going to unplug from all my responsibilities. I think when we also look at you got the pathfinder here and the bureaucrat here, but they're on the same level. They have perspective. And I think they're probably, when your emotional state is very, very low, you move from pathfinder to bureaucrat.
Yeah.
I think, the bureaucrat has the potential to become a very good pathfinder. But the bureaucrat needs to then pay attention to their own emotional energy to be able to transition them over. I don't know what you think about that.
Yes, I think you're spot on. The thing about bureaucrats is they tend to be probably quite nice people. They've got insight. They see the world in a pretty healthy place. But you sometimes look at them and you say, you could take this so much further.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's interesting, a couple of years ago, I listened to a podcast that had Susan David on. And Susan David is a Harvard professor. She's South African, but she's been in the States for many, many years. And she spoke about a thing called social contagion.
Mm.
And another word that we could possibly apply to it is the word emotional contagion. But social contagion goes something like this. You and I are impacted by each other's behaviors more than we realize. And uh, again, using the flying example, but if the guy next to me on a plane, as the plane lands, puts on his phone, even though the air hostess has said, keep the phone off, uh, the research will show that there's probably a 30-40% chance that I'm going to put my phone on now as well, because he's given me permission.
Yep. Yep.
And so social contagion can be in a positive and a negative. I pick up the piece of paper on the ground, the litter. I give people permission to do so as well. I think the word permission there, though, is the big thing. How much of my life is being lived waiting for somebody else to give me permission? And they might give me permission in a negative or a positive way, but how much creativity, how much contribution is just waiting to be unleashed? But it's as if I'm needing somebody to say, you can do this, you've got it in you, do it.
Yeah,
And
man, we could talk about this for a while because it goes. I mean, it's proactiveness essentially, isn't it? When we're going to look at Coveyism, Covey 7 Habits at some point, and the first one there is to be proactive. To be proactive comes from a sense where you've already given yourself permission. You're coming from a place of established permission. It's my right and it's my role in life to act and to make a way. I think it's interesting you talk about social contagion, also in the thing of dilution of responsibility. When everybody has been CC'd in on the mail, nobody takes responsibility.
Yes.
When everybody's doing something, no one feels, everyone walks past them. So that the same goes with dilution of responsibility, and the same request. Yeah. So the bureaucrat is definitely the person that knows that there is something to be done, but hasn't yet given themselves the permission to step forward or be that person that's going to, make the pathway.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's such a dangerous role. It's a likable role, but we're likable people, but the role is dangerous because we're not leading. We're not leading ourselves. We're just waiting. We follow. We rule followers. Think about the frustration in the workplace of people nice people, but who just follow their job description.
Yeah.
And there's a problem. No, it's not my job description. No.
I mean, there's this balance, isn't there? You don't want people that are continually challenging you, continually saying yes, but So, and I think if you have too much of that, then you actually end up hiring people that are the bureaucrat because you're tired of the constant, challenging. So, it is. You don't want to be in a bureaucrat, but you don't want to be the person that's also challenging the status quo of everything all the time either. There is a time when you need to follow the rules, I guess. I mean, even in lockdown times, you do need to follow these rules.
Yeah. So I don't think the Pathfinder is definitely not a rule breaker, but the Pathfinder with insight is then sort of saying, I give myself permission to take a next step. I give myself permission to move. So we think about lockdown, the Pathfinder would be, I understand. So if we look at almost the y-axis at the top, it would be a perspective, insight. The Pathfinder would understand the dangers of COVID-19. The Pathfinder would understand that there are rules that need to be followed. But the Pathfinder would also be saying something like, what needs to be done now so that we move this thing forward in a positive
a good
way.
Question. What needs to be true? I mean, so let's talk about the famed Richard Branson story. He's stuck out there on a holiday island, and they're all ready to go on a flight, and the plane's been cancelled. There's no flights out of here, and so the story is you've told many times, Mike. Is he says, okay, so what are our possibilities? Question number one. What needs to be true in order for us to be able to charter a plane and be able to? So he goes and borrows a board and puts a board up and says, if you would like to, book a ticket, put your name down here, and he gets the a required amount of numbers, and he goes and charters the plane and starts Virgin Airways. You know, we know the story, right? But that is your pathfinder right there. The bureaucrat would wait for someone to eventually, you know, sort something out. The pathfinder asks, what is the possibilities? What you know needs to be true for us to be able to do something? And I guess you could say the pathfinder is particularly good at asking good questions at appropriate times.
Yeah, I love what you're saying there. I think there's two main questions the Pathfinder is asking. It's what do I need to notice? So the story of Richard Branson is I noticed that there's planes on the airfield that are going nowhere, smaller planes. What should I do? And the doing is I think we've spoken in the last couple of weeks about motion, but the doing is just the next step. Because you might sort of, you know, you look at great examples like Branson and Steve Jobs and all these guys, and you think, but I'm not a Branson, I'm not a Jobs. But the things that they're doing are not Superman type of things. They're just asking good questions that they're acting on.
Yes.
And probably full of fear in it as well. And if you break it down into the questions they ask, they're fairly basic yet transformational questions which get them moving. And I think that's what a Pathfinder does. A Pathfinder asks right questions. If you think of it in questions, so the bureaucrat sort of asks a question, who did this? You know, I want to go and sort somebody out. The whiner asks, why is this happening to me? The bureaucrat will probably say, tell me what to do. What must I do?
Yes.
What must I do? Yeah. And the Pathfinder is, what do I notice? What's in my sphere of influence to do?
It's interesting. So the zealot says why, and the pathfinder says what. And I think that's quite a significant difference, isn't it? What must I do is a very different question to why has this happened to me? You know, why did this happen? And you know, sometimes we don't need to know why things. Why did COVID happen? Why did this happen? Well, sometimes we don't need to know why something happened. What we need to know is what do we need to do to move ourselves forward. And then I find often the explanation of why something happens may only happen even years later, you know, the truth of something. But, you know, sometimes people get paralyzed with the why question, that they never can move to the what, you know, which you know, I think is the archetype of the Pathfinder. He or she says, what can I do? You know?
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting. I'm just sort of thinking as we're talking, if you want to know what role you might be playing in a given moment, it's then, well, what's the question I'm asking at the moment?
Good, very good, very good. I like that. Exactly. So actually, these 4 boxes are really about the question that you are asking. You know, I guess the whiner could be, who cares? You know, who's caring about it? You know, yeah. I think I'd like to give that some more thought in another podcast as well. So Mike, what steps can we do to help people move? What advice can we give to help people move from one of the 3 states towards that of a Pathfinder?
Yeah, I think, you know, awareness is the beginning of the next step. So it's to probably just have awareness about where you're playing. And as we've said, maybe what's the question you're asking so that you can have that awareness. But then to try and start asking pathfinding questions like, what do I need to notice about this? So, you know, you might be whining about certain decisions that have been made within COVID-19. The Pathfinder would probably say, what else do I need to notice? What is it that I'm missing? There's a plane on the airfield. And then I think the really big pathfinding question, if this matters, if it matters, if it doesn't matter, let it go. But if this matters, what's the next step?
Yes.
What's the next step? And I think those are 2 basic questions. And like we said, you know, they're not Superman questions. They don't require you to be a highly successful entrepreneur. It's 2 questions that we can ask ourselves. that just help us just move forward.
And
I think we do need to say, okay. Yeah, sorry, Dave.
no, I think the ability to ask good questions comes from our ability to manage our own emotional conditions. Because I
Yes.
think the emotional tank, and this is maybe a subject we should definitely unpack at some point. A lot of our decisions we make, how we think, the decisions we make and how we process those decisions are based around our emotional state. And in the situation that you find yourself, the first thing to do is to get yourself into a place where your emotional state is strong before you then make the decisions out of that place, because invariably, I believe if you come at something with a stronger emotional place, you'll make better pathfinder decisions than if you're in a weaker emotional state. You'll either become the zealot or the whiner, and neither of which will get you out of the situation. We must pay attention to those things, I think.
And then there is a powerful thing that happens when we start moving that begins to then sort of impact our emotional state.
Yes.
So, for example, if you are in a bad emotional state, but if you decide to pick up the phone and text somebody an encouraging message, by doing that, it can potentially take you out the hole.
Yes.
So motion is also a powerful thing. Another, like you said, David, if you're in a bad space, another way of asking a Pathfinder question is to think of somebody who is a Pathfinder. So if I had to sort of say, sure, I wonder what Dave would do here. Because maybe I can't see myself in that place, but I wonder what Dave would do here. And that can also just help you.
Yes.
But I think John Maxwell talks about force feeding. Sometimes we need to force feed ourselves because we're in such a low place of we're in a bankrupt place. But by force feeding, we might just find. I
think we've lost you, Mike. We'll give you a minute.
I'm back now.
You're back. Carry on. That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think we're done. Yeah.
Okay. So next week, let's pick up. Let's look at the 7 habits of Stephen Covey over the next 7 weeks, 7 sections, and we'll unpack those one by one. And look forward to hearing from everyone that listens to these podcasts. Speak to you soon. Thanks, Mike.